It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday travel and cruise industry news on this, the 15th day of December 2021. I'm Chillie Falls, coming to you from Bedford County, Virginia, Central Virginia area, right near Lynchburg. Today, folks, is National Cupcake Day. You know what to do. Go find a cupcake and celebrate. So just thought I'd suggest that. All right. Before we get to the interesting part of today's show, the ships that are sailing from U.S. ports today down in Fort Lauderdale, the Eurodam sails, Miami Scarlet Lady sails, and out in Galveston, Adventure of the Seas sails. So that's all happening today. I do have a little bit of news on my future cruise schedule, which we'll get to that in a little while. I added a cruise just a few minutes ago, and actually going to be with our buddy Jason, that Pittsburgh Jason. That's way out in the future. I hope to go on a cruise sooner with him. All right, today's headlines, which we'll get to after our special guest this morning. Disney to Homeport in Port Everglades. Royal Caribbean drops an embarkation policy. Norwegian to Homeport in Panama. Former Carnival Fascination scrapped, and that's a sad one. Aviation American Gin partners with Virgin Voyages. And the 10th Aida ship resumes operation, and that's all this morning, live at 11. Okay, now, yesterday, I failed to tell you guys what the port was. You guys let me slip out without telling you again. This is the port from yesterday, and I completely failed to tell you what that was. And that is, of course, Sitka. You were all around it. I think you guessed every other Alaska port, but that one is Sitka. So that was the guess to yesterday. And this is today's port. I'm not sure that you've got enough there to even have a clue what it is. But anyway, I'll throw that one up for today, and you can stick some things in the chat room, and I'll get to the chat room eventually. Now, I have been doing... I've been bringing you a little bit of what I've just enjoyed immensely those last few days. And that's our buddy, Bethany Bartley. She's been down in Tampa, is over there on the Avalon Passion, and coming to you live from Mainz, Germany. I think I said it right. Here's Bethany. Hey, Bethany, how's things going?
Guten Abend from Mainz, Germany. Hello.
I know what that one means. Okay, you're in Mainz today. I've fallen in love with this area of the world, and I've been all through Europe, but I've never been in any of from Switzerland, Germany, and France that you've covered on this trip. So that's new. It's been all new to me. Back when you were you were still in Switzerland, I think, in the cathedral that had the astronomical clock. I don't know what that is. What is an astronomical clock?
Yeah, so there's a few of them around in Europe. This one here I think this was in Strasbourg in France yesterday, or maybe the day before. I'm losing track of my days too. There's a few around. Prague has a really big one as well. But essentially, these are hundreds of years old, but basically there are different sections of the clock that tell you different things. So there's one that actually tells you the time, but there's also a part of it that tells you the phase of the moon. There's a part that tells you the calendar, and so on and so forth. So this is what people used hundreds of years ago to figure out what day it was and what season it was and what phase the moon was in. And it's all done mechanically by hand with different weights behind the scenes. So there's typically a young man who goes in every day and kind of sets everything and makes sure that everything is right.
That's just amazing. And of course, I've talked about it numerous times. The cathedrals all through Europe, and everyone is just as fascinating as the next. And I've been in a bunch of them, and you found some more that I haven't been in, and they're just awesome.
Beautiful.
All right, now I believe this was dinner last night, and I'm not 100% sure, but you showed something that I'm scratching my head like, where the hell did that come from? Explain this one to me.
So this is what they call the amuse boosh. So this is a very small bite. It's what you start your dinner with. And it's typically, this is literally just one bite, but it's something to, the loose translation of it is to amuse the palate or to amuse the mouth. So it's something that sort of prepares you for the rest of the dinner.
And that little funky spoon is just for that.
It's just for that. Yep. Yep. You take
Okay.
your spoon and you have your one little bite to kind of get ready for the rest of the meal.
Wow, I learned something new. Okay, so now we go on to the rest of this meal. First, you had what I thought would be the main entree, and that's the salmon dish.
Yes.
That was your appetizer.
This is the appetizer. Yes. It was a smoked salmon. It was herb crusted. There was a sauce on the side that had ever so slightly a little bit of a kick to it. And then there was a fresh watermelon and a pineapple salsa. So it was really, really good.
All right, and then you had a little lobster thrown in.
Yes, this was our intermezzo, which was the course between the appetizer and the soup. So yeah, this was half of a rock lobster tail with a saffron sauce and risotto.
All right, and then you had this.
Yes,
the soup was before that, so you had the French onion soup, and then
yes,
the lobster.
Yes, and we were in France at the time, so French onion soup was the local specialty of the night.
Okay, and then. That's the entree?
This was our entree, yeah. So there's the medallions of beef towards the back. Behind that is the truffled potatoes gratin. And then there were some fresh vegetables in the front there.
Wow. And then, of course, you did have to just totally ruin my day with the dessert.
It was almost too pretty to eat, but I did. And I'm glad I did because it was absolutely delicious.
Now, all right. Now on you're on the Avalon Passion, okay?
Yes.
Is every dinner that elaborate?
Yes. Yes, that is a typical evening dinner. Last night's dinner was technically the gala farewell dinner, although it wasn't our last night on the ship. Basically, what Avalon does, they do it 2 nights. They do it the second to the last night because they know that the last night everybody's busy packing and worrying about disembarkation the next day. So they do it 1 night prior. The only difference between that gala dinner last night and all the other dinners is there's one extra course. The intermezzo was something that was unique to the gala dinner, but otherwise it is a 4-course meal. It's an appetizer, it's soup, it's an entree, and it's a dessert. And yes, they all look just as fabulous as the ones we just saw. And they taste fantastic too.
All right. Now, you got into Mainz this morning.
Mm-hmm.
That would be early morning in Mainz, Germany, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. And then you have a little cup of chocolate, I would guess.
It's cappuccino. So they've got fantastic coffee makers. There's 3 or 4 throughout the ship. You can do cappuccino, espresso, coffee, hot chocolate, tea. So yeah, I go down and have breakfast in the dining room, and then I get another cup of cappuccino on my way back and just relax a little bit before heading out.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of breakfast do they have? I'm fascinated now. What kind of breakfast? Because that's always my important meal of the day.
Yeah, it is buffet, and it's a typical. You have fresh fruit. There's yogurt. There's cereal. There's different fresh pastries, and then they also have hot, typically like scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, potatoes, things like that. And then they have a chef who's also making eggs or omelets and eggs to order as well. And then you can also order French toast and pancakes and things like that from the restaurant as well.
All right, so I'd be comfortable at breakfast then. I just be a
Yes,
normal,
yes.
pretty normal.
There's a little bit of something for everybody. Yes,
Yeah.
There is a fair amount of British passengers as well. So there is a lot of the typical British breakfast as well. You'll find the baked beans, sausages, stewed tomatoes, things like that.
Yeah. All right, now you. The other thing that I found fascinating is the mugs. Tell us about the mugs.
Yes, so each different Christmas market in each of the different villages, they serve a lot of hot beverages. Some of them vary based on where you are, but typically it's something called glue wine, which is basically a hot mulled wine, which is absolutely delicious. But in each of the different villages, each village has its own individual mug as well, and it typically has the name of the village and the market, and then oftentimes it has the year of the market as well, because they are essentially souvenirs from year to year. So when you go and purchase your hot beverage, you are charged a deposit. It's usually like €1 or €2, and you're served the beverage in the mug. You can return the mug back and get your deposit back, or you can keep the mug as a souvenir. So yes, my suitcase is now half full of mugs because I've saved one from each of the markets that we've been to.
Yeah, I'm afraid I would be doing that too. I'd be throwing the damn clothes out and filling up the suitcase to bring the mugs home, I think.
Luckily, they're small, so it's not, like a typical American mugs are pretty large. These are relatively small. They're probably about half the size of an American mug, so there's plenty of room.
Now, they had a walking tour in Mines this morning, which you opted out of because you've been to Mines before. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the very first cruise I did with Avalon back 5 years ago now, basically retraced these steps. So I've experienced this tour, so I decided to relax a little today.
Wow, it's just I love and I don't know, the Alpine looking villages. I find them fascinating. That's unbelievably fascinating.
Yeah, and it's very typical of this area. Yeah, it is sort of the southern Alpine region. But basically the part of the Rhine that we've been on is essentially the border between France and Germany for most of it. And it's fascinating history here because throughout the course of about 100 years, the different places that we visited have literally switched between French and German over the years. And so a lot of the tour guides like to tell stories that, their grandparents, they literally over the course of their lifetime of 75 or 80 years, they were French citizens for a while, and then they were German citizens for a while, and then back to French and back to German, so on and so forth, without ever having moved houses. So there's a lot of the shared culture here. You'll see a lot of both the French and German influences here. The language that is spoken here is actually sort of a combination of the two. There is true French spoken and true German spoken, but the local language, particularly the last couple of days, has been Alsatian, which is sort of a combination of the two. So it's fascinating history.
Now, you did go up. I probably said this yesterday. You went up on the top deck, and you posted a couple pictures of the top deck. Nobody in bikinis out there sunning. No. There wasn't a soul on any of the loungers.
No, yes, I probably the only passenger. Of course, there's only 33 of us, but I'm probably the only passenger who's actually made it up there. It was positively balmy today. It was about 48 degrees today, so it was actually a nice day. But yeah, that the sky deck is a fantastic place on the summer cruises, and yes, you will see everybody hangs out there afternoons and evenings and after dinner. But yeah, it's pretty much a ghost town on this cruise.
Yeah, especially when the boat's moving, because
Yeah.
you got the wind factor on top of it being cold to start with. Of course, I mean, you've been in Florida long enough. I would imagine, even though you grew up in New England and were used to cold weather, but you've been in Tampa now a while. I bet this is probably cutting through you a little bit, isn't it?
Luckily, I was prepared. I am a smart Maine girl. I do know how to dress in layers, so I have plenty of layers with me. I've got, as long as your head and your neck are covered, you're in pretty good shape. So hats and scarves are a must. I've never felt, totally uncomfortable while out. There's been a couple moments where it started to get a little dicey, but for the most part, it's been reasonable. And again, the last couple of days has been in the 40s, which is actually a pleasant surprise. So luckily, you're not out all that long. It's usually, an hour or two when you're out and about, and then you can, come back and warm up on the ship, or, find a nice tavern.
One of the things I noticed in the pictures, and I probably made mention of this yesterday, I think, even outdoors in France, everybody's masked. So is that a requirement for everybody?
Yes. So France was yes, I've been in Switzerland, France, and Germany, and France is the only of the three places that essentially you've got to have a mask on wherever you go. Indoors, outdoors, it doesn't matter. In both Switzerland and Germany, in the markets themselves, even though they are outside, in Switzerland, masks were recommended but not required. Here in Germany, they are required at the outdoor markets. And then indoor places in all three countries, masks are required, as is your proof of vaccination status. So it doesn't matter if you're going into Starbucks for 5 minutes to get a coffee, or if you're going into a restaurant for a 2-hour meal. If you don't have your proof of vaccination, you are not getting in that door.
Through all of this, from Tampa to Newark to Geneva to, but anyway, all the way through. Have you felt unsafe health-wise? I mean, COVID-wise?
No, I haven't, because of the implementation that we just talked about, because everybody is masked, and because on the plane, it was required to be vaccinated because it was an international flight. Obviously, on the ship, everybody's required to be vaccinated. Now, I actually feel more comfortable here than I do back at home, because, at home, no such restrictions are in place. So, no, I feel very, very comfortable here.
Unfortunately, in this country, we've got half the population and is politically on one side and half on the other, and there's no meeting in between. So
yeah.
I hate it, but that's neither here nor there. You're also, and I point this out also as following up with that question, you're also a solo traveler.
I am.
Any unease at all with doing this major a trip as solo?
Absolutely not. I feel comfortable solo travel. I've been many different places around the world, and on long excursions, with groups and truly by myself. I have never felt unsafe. I particularly like the river cruises are fantastic for solo travelers, because it is and this is an extremely small group. Typically there's, anywhere from 100 to 140 passengers on board. On this ship, we have 33. So it's, you're basically like family. It's very easy to meet others. You're typically, the tours, you're obviously out with others in the tours. But even just wandering around, obviously you need to follow the same common sense guidelines that you do anywhere, right? You have to be, aware of your surroundings and take care of your belongings and things like that. But no, as a solo traveler, and particularly as a solo female traveler, I find that Europe in particular is very safe.
Now, if we can just get the cruise lines, is particularly to give the breaks to the solo traveler.
Yes, but
I'll never go back. I'll never get away from being solo again. I absolutely. I mean, I love cruising before and traveling before, but I love it even. That was just opened up a whole new world to me when the first solo cruise I went on.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I can't imagine traveling with friends or family again. I mean, small trips, small domestic trips, that's one thing. But yeah, when I'm doing international trips and cruises, it's me and me alone, and that's the best way to do it. But that is why I love Avalon. They do the single supplement waiver on virtually all of their itineraries. They make it super easy to be a solo traveler. They're very welcoming of solo travelers. So one of the many reasons why I love them. And no, I don't work for them.
Yes, I was going to be perfectly transparent. Of course, we've had Pam Huffy on before too. She does work for them. But anyway, yes, Bethany is just like I would be, just a complete, a traveler. So, Bethany, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, and I know my audience has appreciated letting us share your adventure through this. This has just been fabulous for me, and I'm sure I haven't done it justice with my pronunciation of things, but I've certainly enjoyed it. So my thanks to you, my friend, and thanks for giving us some time today, because I know you got some stuff to do yet today over there in Germany. So, Bethany, thank you so much.
Time. Appreciate you sharing the journey. Thank you.
And straight safe travels getting back home. We'll see you back when you get back to Tampa and seeing the kiddies and going to some Bucks ball games.
Go Bucks.
Have a great day, Bethany. Thanks again.
Thanks, Chillie.
Okay, see you. All right, that of course is Bethany Bartley. She's over in mine's Germany today. This has just been a fascinating period of time for me. Oh, and I forgot to show. She had lunch today back at the boat, and that was the dessert. That's Black Forest cake. I was going to flash that up too. I mean, the food just looks unbelievable on Avalon Passion. All right. I do have to get to some news today, folks. Some of you probably saw the headlines with Disney. The Broward County Commission and Disney Cruise Line have announced a new agreement that will make Fort Lauderdale's Port Everglades Disney's second year-round home port. The cruise line has entered into a 15-year partnership with the port, which includes a minimum 10.6 million passenger movement and 3 5-year extension options that could add another 11.25 million passengers into the mix. The agreement provides for one ship to be home ported in Port Everglades year-round beginning the fall of 2023, joined by a second seasonal ship in 2025. Adding Port Everglades as a second year-round port gives Disney a dedicated terminal in a market with direct highway access in one of the country's fastest-growing airports, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, which I have flown into several times. All right. I do have a couple more stories this morning, but first, before I do that, I got to pause for this.
Do you have a bad back, bad hips, bad knees, or any other mobility issues? Think about Scootaround. For scooters, walkers, wheelchairs, even oxygen needs, delivered right to your cabin. Scoot Around for all your mobility needs on your upcoming cruise.
All right, folks, and as always, Scoot Around's phone number and the SRN 11137 number is always somewhere down in the description of the show or any videos that I do. So you can always have access to that. And of course, not only do you get the best rates that Scoot Around has available using the SRN 11137, but I make a penny or two on it too, which is pretty cool. So, all right, Royal Caribbean. They actually did away with something. And this was just kind of a strange story to me. I'll try to get through it without screwing it up. Royal Caribbean will no longer allow passengers to pre-plan early debark or late embarkation on any of their cruise ships. The reason for this change is due to travel restrictions currently being enforced by countries that they visit and for the health and security of their guests. Downlining allowed guests to embark or disembark at a port of call other than the ship's scheduled embarkation-disembarkation port. This will no longer be allowed for any Royal Caribbean cruises. So I was not aware that they even did this, but let's say you went on a 7-day cruise from, well, just pulling one out of the hat, from Miami, and it stopped in someplace else. You could get off, you could disembark at that port. I mean, I was not aware that that was even in the scorecard, but apparently it was. Guests who use the cruise line's Air to Sea program and experience flight delays will still be able to fly to the cruise ship's next port of call as long as they're fully vaccinated and able to show a valid negative COVID test. So, if something is beyond your control, you can still get on the boat. All right. Little news from Norwegian. Yesterday, Norwegian Cruise Line has become the first cruise line to offer Panama City, Panama, as a home port for cruises. With a variety of voyages on the Norwegian Jewel and other ships scheduled for 2022 and 23, this will provide amazing round-trip options to allow passengers to better explore all Panama has to offer, along with the canal transit voyages. Panama Canal cruises are a once-in-a-lifetime dream voyage for many cruise travelers, but just transiting the canal doesn't permit guests to truly experience the rich history and personality of Panama. So, Panama City, Panama is going to be a home port for the Jewel. In 2023, Norwegian Cruise Line will offer 12 voyages from Panama, starting with the Norwegian Jewel on March 20th, 2022. The inaugural sailing is a 9-day itinerary, traversing the canal and visiting incredible destinations of Port Limon, Oranjestad, Aruba, Willemstad, Curacao, Bonaire, Cartagena, Colombia, before arriving on the Caribbean side of Panama in the city of Cologne. So later, the Norwegian Gem and the Norwegian Joy will also have cruises scheduled from Panama. So you might want to put that on your future plans. So speaking of future plans, our buddy Jason, I think he might be in the chat room today. I don't know if he's mentioned it or not yet. Has a Carnival Freedom cruise booked for November 10th, 2023. From Miami, it goes to Grand Cayman, Puerto Limon, Costa Rica, Cologne, Panama, Cartagena, Colombia, and back to Miami. It's a 9-day cruise. It has fabulous balcony rates. Okay. 9-day cruise, balcony rate less than $1,000. However, it's not a very good solo price, but because Jason booked it, and because I promised that I was going to be on a cruise with him, I booked it as well, even though I'd like to not have to pay that much for the solo, but I did. So that's going to be in November of 2023. It's up on my schedule. I have not put it on the shipmate thing yet, but it is on my schedule if anybody wants to look at that. And hopefully between now and then, I'll be able to hook up with Jason on another cruise, but maybe I can catch even one cheap to balance out spending too much for this one. But that's neither here nor there. All right. This one, this was sad. Carnival Fascination, which I've been on before. It was known as, most recently, as Century Harmony. Previously, the Carnival Fascination was sold for scrap in October and will soon end up beached, only to be dismantled piece by piece. As of mid-November 2020, the vessel was in anchorage off Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is typically the last stop of a ship before being beached. Last summer, Fascination was eliminated from the Carnival fleet and put into cold layup status at Cadiz, Spain. A few months later, Century Harmony Cruise Limited, an Asian cruise operator, bought the vessel with plans to put it into service in Asia as a hotel ship. Launched in 1994, the ship was built by Carnival as the fourth ship in the Fantasy class. Aside from Fascination, there was also the Carnival Fantasy, Carnival Imagination, Carnival Inspiration. They made up the 4 Fantasy class ships. I've been on all 4 of them, and now they're all 4 going to be gone. So I kind of hate that. These were still good ships. Yeah, they needed some sprucing up, as older ships always do. But they were, to me, I love that size ship. But, I didn't know this, man, folks. I'm going to tell you right up front, I knew absolutely nothing about this one. The names or the item. The Ryan Reynolds owned brand Aviation Gin is headed to the high seas thanks to a partnership with Virgin Voyages. Now, they first teamed up with Virgin Atlantic to bring Aviation Gin to the sky. A fitting partnership, they said, for a brand with aviation in the name. Richard Branson's cruise line and Reynolds Gin Company are now bringing their partnership to the waters. Quite frankly, folks, I don't know who this dude is or Aviation Gin, because I'm not a gin drinker. So if somebody knows, feel free to tell me, because I saw that and I said, what the hell is that? Aviation Gin? I thought you always Tanqueray. Yeah. Or Bombay. It's only 2 gins that I really know that are good. The rest of them are not so good. All right. Aida Nova became the 10th ship in the Aida fleet to sail from Hamburg, Germany this week. Congratulations to Aida. Of course, that's over on the other side of the pond. They're probably going to stay that way for a while, but Aida Nova is sailed. So they've got 10 ships sailing now. That's good for them. Good for the folks in Europe. All right. Let's see who's in the chat room. Let's see if anybody's fussing at me today and if anybody guessed the port. Jason's with us. Hey, Jason. Carol's here. Katie's here. Hi, Katie. Cindy's with us. Good morning, Cindy. Amy's here. Bring on the cupcakes, Amy says. Yeah, you got to go get a cupcake today, folks. National Cupcake Day. I'm sure you guys all live in a place that has a cupcake house or a bakery. Go get a cupcake. Elizabeth wishes down in Cozumel. How was the beach day in the and the cold weather yesterday, Elizabeth. Katie's here. Okay, they're going to try to hook up when Katie is in Cozumel. I will be in Cozumel on the 26th if you are around. The day after Christmas. That's right. You're on a Christmas cruise. So Elizabeth and Katie might hook up and have an adult beverage. And Elizabeth thanks Bethany. I find Bethany's, I've interviewed her once before, and I've followed a number of her trips. And but this was a really, man, that's a nice trip. I've never been on a river cruise, but boy, and I'm not sure about how I'm going to handle my mobility issues. That's a problem on river cruises, but we'll see, as I'm taking some steps now to be a little different. Elizabeth says it's very rare for guests to disembark mid-cruise. I thought so, especially in the Caribbean. However, over in Europe, it happens a bit more frequently. Okay. And Elizabeth says it's still a bit chilly down there. I bet it is. Okay, no guests on the. I'm not surprised. I will use the same port tomorrow, which maybe Hot Air will be back so he can take a guest. Of course, they sailed on the Gem, and this is a day at sea for Hot Air Tom. But anyway, that's going to wrap me up for today. Today is a PT day for me. And by the way, so those of you, since I did share that I'm on a catheter test, if you want to call it that, this is day 3. So far, so good. Man, it'd be awesome if this works. But remember, I went over 4 days before and then it shut down. So I'm not getting over rambunctious yet. But so far, so good. And I'm tickled. So maybe. All right. That is going to wrap me up for today. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for Thursday travel and cruise industry news. You guys stay safe. Have a fabulous evening. I'll see everybody tomorrow. This is the old fat travel guy. Later, y'all.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.